Hi, I'm Senior Grandmaster Jimenez from Kajukenbo Live, coming out of South Lake Tahoe, California. This is our Chapter 2 of my story, Like It or Not. It would be about Senior Grandmaster Vargas and Great Grandmaster Gaylord. Why I left Grandmaster Vargas and why I went directly under Great Grandmaster Gaylord. As I left off in the last chapter about him giving my black belt after 6 months. Well, after that, I stayed there probably for another 6 months, maybe a year. I can't remember exactly the time. But that's when the pyramid scam was going on, and he was into that. So I used to teach all his classes, and he was never in class. It was just myself teaching, and he had a small group of students because he had lost his building, and we were in the studio in Castro Valley. And, well, during that time, myself, I'd go to all the tournaments by myself, nobody represent. I would take one or two of the students that wanted to go. So that tournament scene was kind of out, which that wasn't the important part. The part that we had a hard time with was the browbeating, like I said. If you did something wrong, you paid for it for 2-3 weeks. I borrowed his size one time to do it at a tournament. And instead of bringing him back on Monday, I brought him back on Tuesday. I had to get lectured and for the next 2 days because I didn't bring him back Monday instead of Tuesday. It was silly stuff like that. And like, for example, what he did to Grandmaster Jimmy Willis. Jimmy Willis was only a white belt at the time. I was a green belt, and we were in class, and he wanted to be tested for his purple belt. Well, we all know you're not supposed to ask your teacher when you get tested. That's up to them. We all know that. But myself, Rick Schrammel, we was kind of like messing with him, like most classmates do, and we knew better, but we were all, why don't you just ask? Not knowing that he actually would do it, and he actually did ask. And he asked, and after class, and then while we were sitting down after class, Vargas would always kneel down and talk to the class for like half an hour. So Jimmy raised his hand. He's all, Sifu, I want to ask you a question. And he's all, go ahead, James. And he got a little nervous. So he's all, oh, I'll ask you after class. No, James, you ask me now. That's just the way it was. So Jimmy asked about getting tested for his purple belt. There was no reaction out of Senior Grandmaster Vargas' face. He just looked at him and said, okay, now you won't get tested for the next 3 years for asking. Now, I ain't gonna lie, I started laughing, Rick Kramer started laughing, and we had to do push-ups for laughing. But no, I just thought he was just like, I'm gonna teach him a lesson, like, don't do that. He actually kept him a white belt for 3 years. That's how sad it was, and with Jimmy out there representing him at the tournaments, competing, and kept him that way. And so stuff like that, it was just like a horrible thing to do to somebody that was just only a white belt. And really, actually, he knew better, but he really didn't know better. When you're a white belt, some things you just don't understand sometimes. But that's the kind of things that he would do. So it got to the point that it was just got old. There wasn't really teaching. It was just, he's never out there and stuff like that. Now, I'm not trying to say anything bad about him because, he did put out a lot of top champion black belts. But like myself and Grandmaster Willis, we used to go to all the tournaments. We compete all over, and I always represented him with no thanks at all. Like, I remember the first time I got California State #1 in California. I was in the karate magazine. They put me in there, and so I came in and I was all excited. And I said, Sifu, I go, look, I'm in the karate magazine. And he was sewing some uniforms together. And he just looked at me with no expression. Went, oh, yeah, that's good. And turned back around and kept sewing. So I thought to myself, wow, that's a pretty big accomplishment. And he just kind of blew me off. So the man that was talking to him was one of the students that I used to take to tournaments all the time, his son. I left, and the man told me after he told them, he said, "What?" He goes, "Why you had no reaction like that?" He goes, "That boy came in here. He's number one competitor in California. And he made the karate magazine, and you just like there was nothing, no big deal." His reply to him was, "Wow, he's probably the best martial artist I've ever put out or ever will put out, but I'm not going to tell him that." So those are kind of things that was kind of like he would do. That was kind of like, why wouldn't you want to tell somebody that? But that was just him, So as time went on, now part of this, like I said, I'm not going to pull no punches. Part of this was my fault, and looking back as you're older, I can kind of see where he was coming from to a point. Okay, like with my students, whatever they do after class, that's really up to them. That's their business. Unless it's something really bad like drugs or whatever, then I don't want them around me. But one of the girl students was in there, and she was married, and what made it worse, she was married to his cousin, and very beautiful. And I was only a young guy, and I'm sure you know the story's leading. One thing led to another, and he asked me, so I started going out with her, and things went on, and so she wound up being with me, and he found out. So he told me, he goes, "I do not want you to see her again." He goes, "You're going to cause too much trouble." He goes, "If you see her again, I will kick you out of my studio." So I said, okay. I listened to him because I was listening to him. I said, okay. But then the other part of me was the young kid, not thinking straight, because I really did like her and she liked me. I decided, well, I'm just going to still see her. I'll just see her on the side. So long story short, he found out. Then after the pyramid scam thing got over and me teaching all his classes for like 3 months, he decided he wanted to have a meeting. And the meeting was he wanted to strip me down to a white belt because I went out with that girl when he told me not to. Well, at this point, I already had enough of the bullshit, the browbeating, the wise comments he would make, sexual wise, and I would just kind of blow him off, not paying attention to that kind of stuff, and I just had enough of it. So I sat in this meeting, and of course, John Barron, like I said, he was the bitch of the studio. He was there, and of course, he's all, "Oh yeah, strip him down to white belt." I figured he would. Some of the other peers were all, "Well, I don't think he really deserves that." And of course, Vargas got mad at them for saying that. So then he said, "Well, what I'm going to do," he goes, "I'm going to send you to great Grandmaster Gaylord." Now, great Grandmaster Gaylord went by Professor back then. Even to this day, I still call him Professor. So anyway, long story short, I went home and I thought about it. I thought to myself, you know what? This is not right. After all what I've done for him all these years and helped him and helped the studio and put up with all the little innuendos and stuff, I had enough. So I didn't go back. And I decided to open up my own studio. And that's how I did that that's how I got started. I opened up my own studio in the garage, and I had about 20 students. And I get to that point in my studio and probably the next chapter. But getting back to Senior Grandmaster Vargas, I know a lot of people say bad things about him. A lot of things might be true. A lot of things might not be true. And I'm sure a lot of you know the story about what happened and why he got arrested and everything. And let me clarify on something on this. People that are gay, that's totally their thing. I mean, I've had gay students come in. I've had lesbian students come in. I don't care. I don't care what they do. That's their business. Okay? But back in the 70s, if you were gay, you didn't come out because it wasn't, you went out, they call it out of the closet, I guess. So he wasn't that way. He used to take 100-pound dumbbells like nothing. And he's not a big guy and just curl them like nothing and stuff like that. But doing all that, then the gay people came out of the closets, that's when he started acting more feminine and stuff like that. Now, I'm not making fun of him or nothing like that, so don't take me wrong on that. I'm just I'm getting to the point. Okay, so a lot of us knew that. You know, it must be me, a young guy. I'm like, when I heard that, I'm all, no way, he's not that way. He just acts that way, you know, because I didn't want to think that he was. But long story short, after I left, I hadn't seen him for like probably 30 years. Well, and before the 30 years, I was at my class in San Leandro teaching it, and one of the students came in and shook my hand. And so I knew he was Kajukenbo the way he shook my hand, and he was pretty feminine. So I figured he was from Vargas's. So then he asked me to come in the office, and he told me what had happened with this boy, and he was underage, and he wanted me to help him. Now, I told him, I said, this is none of my business. I go, if something like that happened, you need to call the police. That's what I told him. He said, no, you're the only one that can help us. He goes, you need to put him away, and da-da-da-da. I said, I just can't do that, you know. And so then I had him leave, and then about 10 minutes later, the mother of the child called me up, and she was screaming and crying and bawling, and she told me what he did to her son. And, you know, I don't want to get into that part, but it just, you know, wasn't very good. And I told her the same thing. I said, you need to call the police. No, you're the only one we can trust. You can put him away. You're the only one that's got that power to do that. Please get rid of him. I said, no, I can't do that. You need to call the police. I go, it's out of my hands. So probably about 2-3 days later, here comes a sheriff. He comes into the studio and talking to me and asking a bunch of questions. And like I told him, I never seen him, you know, touch any boys, nothing like that. Never seen him do that. He made comments and make little wisecracks, you know, but besides that, no, I haven't seen him do anything like that. About 3 weeks later, my guys was the ones that arrested him. And at a house in Sonol. And then they put him on in the news, and they put him on trial. And everybody in Kajukenbo, hated him because of what he did. Now, he got off scot-free. Now, I'm going to say it this way. I wasn't in that cabin, and none of you out there was in that cabin. The only person that knows what happened would be Senior Grandmaster Vargas and the boy. Those are the only two people in this world that was in that cabin that knows what happened. So, did he do it? Could have. Could he have not have done it? Could have. We don't know. So, it's hard to hate somebody not knowing for sure. And it's a sad thing because it put a black eye in Kajukenbo. Now, we keep in mind, he was proven innocent. And if you pull his record up, you will see nothing on there. Innocent. That's not saying he didn't do it. That's just saying he was proven innocent. So after about 30 years, not talking to him, he got a hold of me. So I started talking to him again, and we sit for hours and hours just chit-chatting about the old days and stuff like that. And then I brought him back out into the Kajukenbo world. And I took a lot of flack from that, a lot of crap from that. People got mad at me because I brought him out. I got emails, I got phone calls, I got threats, you know. I got, people going, oh, it's your boyfriend, you know, stupid stuff like that. That's so far out of there. It was just ridiculous, you know. But I brought him back out because he's a smart man when it comes to Kajukenbo. Did he make mistakes in his life? Yes, like all of us. If he did what he did, do I justify that? No, not at all. 100% I don't. But again, he was proven innocent. Now, I brought him out. I went through all that stuff. And then towards the end, the same old senior grandmaster Vargas came out. The manipulating, stuff like that. And I just haven't talked to him since. But when I did talk to him, he would give me good advice in the martial arts, and it usually was the right answer. Will he get mad at me for saying what I'm saying? Probably. But I'm speaking the truth. So that's why I left Senior Grandmaster Vargas. Now, how I got hooked up with Great Grandmaster Gaylord was Senior Grandmaster Vargas had sent him a letter about me with the girl and stuff like that. So I set up with my own studio. I said, well, I'm not going to go over there and get beat up because I already heard how, I'm going to call him Professor, how Professor Gaylord was, beating everybody up and hurting everybody. He's crazy and stuff. And, I was like, whoa. So then one day I was at a tournament and I competed, took first and stuff. And he was there with the Juarez studio. And I was walking by and Ron Esteller said, Tony, Professor Gaylord wants to meet you. And I was thought to myself, oh, shit, I'm going to get it. I'm really going to get it because, and what an eye-opener. So I talked to him, and he says, tell me the story. So I told him the same story I told you about the girl. Didn't leave anything out. I told him all what I did and stuff like that. His exact words to me was, that's it? He goes, I shouldn't even say it like this, but he saw, fuck that fag. He goes, I'm fucking 5 girls right now in my studio. He goes, you come under me. He goes, you see me Monday, and from now on you'll be under me. That's exactly what he told me word for word. And I didn't expect that to come out of his mouth. And I was like, oh my God. It was like the biggest weight off my shoulders. So I remember going down there on Monday. We chit-chatted some more. He asked me what degree I was. I told him I was a student black belt. He said, no. He goes, I've already heard about you. I've already, seen you. You're one of the best Kajukenbo people that we've had. I go, he goes, I want to move you up to 2nd degree. You come the following week. So I did. And he did. And I got pictures of it. He promoted me to 2nd degree and all that good stuff. And that's probably been the last, I've been under him for the last 45, 50 years. And I've never left the side except a couple of years before he passed. We left in certain ways, and I'll get to that point later. But so after that, he came to my studio once a month. He taught class. I went to black belt class. He taught. He was a great man. Everybody has their vices. He did drink a little bit too much. That's what probably caused his problems later on in life. But everybody has their vices. But in the martial arts, he knew what he was doing. We'd come to class, and he'd beat the hell out of us. And, of course, all of us, myself, Jim Juarez, Brian Yoshi, Jim Williams, all those guys, plus more. I mean, Pete Morales, we'd want to be there every black belt class. We couldn't wait. I mean, I give you an example. There was about 30, 40 of us. And it wound up to be about 7 of us left because he was so... I won't say mean, but just mean. When he hit you. And like I've seen different interviews, he's always had that big ring on his hand. And I don't know how many people he's punched in the face, and they got the little ring mark on there and stuff. And he even got one of my black belts like that. He put one of my black belts, Cliff Eldridge, through the sheetrock in the wall. Just pulled him out and threw him on the floor. And like nothing, he just is like, okay, next thing, let's do this, let's do that. But that's how he was. And I loved that guy. I would do anything for him. That's why, I took over the WWKA, started that for him. And we'll get into that later. But there's been many times that we've taken him places. I've always had a limousine pick him up. And it's not a kiss-ass thing. It's just the way I did things back then. We took him to hotels. He stayed in nice hotels. I treated him like a rock star. I got pictures of him in the limousine with couple girls. He had a ball. We treated him like a rock star. And in return, he was always there for us. And what he would do with me, for example, he would call me up, and his exact words were, "Tony, Gaylord." That's how he would. That's every time. I can picture his voice right now. And he'd tell me, "I want this done." Boom, 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 boom. You take care of it. Got it? All right. Click. And that's the way he was. That's the relationship me and him had. Besides he had a relationship with all the other black belts, but it might have been a little different way. But with me, when he wanted things done, he always called me. Had things like when he wanted his 10th degree. "Tony, Gaylord, make me a 10th degree. Make it happen." "Yes, Professor." Boom. I made it happen. That's just the way I did. But then there was the bad parts of it. He had me do a few things that I would have to bring up in the after black belt class. I'd have to bring up in the KA meeting. I would have to bring up certain things. Now, his answer to that was, "But make sure it's coming from you, not me." So it made me look like the asshole. So most people hated me because I would bring these things up. They'd look at me like, "Oh, you're some rich asshole. You don't need the money. We can't afford it." And da 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 da. They're not realizing it's coming from the man above. And I didn't want to throw him under the bus and say, "Well, Professor said, I don't want to do that." So I just kind of took the blunt of it all the time. So a lot of people don't realize that that's what I did. I think Brian Yoshi had a little bit of a taste of it too. We do the same thing with him. We had a little talk for a while. Maybe not as bad, but he still did. So I was fine with everything on that. I would, always stay close to him and stuff like that. And then when his wife passed, Millie, I got a phone call from him, and he says, "Tony, I want you to come stay with me." And I want to stay with you. And he was crying. And he goes, "I don't want to be alone." I said, "Well," I go, "Professor," I got, at that time, I have a wife and a new baby. I go, "I can maybe come on the weekends, but I can't come like every day because I have class and them." "No, I need somebody here." So I couldn't do it. So Professor Gary stepped in and took my place, and went and stayed with him for a while. And I think some of the other black belts kind of stayed with him for a little bit. And I felt really bad, but I did have a family life too, and I was getting tired of getting divorced. So, I thought I'd try to make that one work. But in the long run, everything was fine. And the reason I left, I was a little upset with him. It was because I leave this one's name out. I know I wasn't saying anything, but I don't want to bring his name up. One of my black belts pretty much disrespected me, and I won't go into the whole thing, but he almost cost me $1 million, put it that way, and I was really upset with him, and I was telling Professor Gaylord this, and he well, don't worry about him, he's a nobody, and da 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 da. He goes, "You just let it go." I said, "Okay." I let it go. Following week in the black belt class, I was in Reno, and I couldn't go to black belt class. He turned around and promoted the student that did this to me. That was my student, actually. That's what caused the drift between me and him, because I was really upset because he did that. And then I was really tired of the KA, nothing being done, all the two-faced crap, all the bullshit that was pulled. I just got tired of it. And I had enough students, had 400 students, had tons of black belts under me. I didn't need the association, because I was already self-contained with all my people. But would I ever disown Professor Gaylord? Never. Never to this day. I left his side. I would never leave his side. We might not have talked for a little bit because of what happened, but I would never go under anybody else or even think about it, because he's my teacher, and I love that man, and I would never stray from him. And because I didn't talk to him, didn't mean I didn't love the guy. And that's the only sad part of the whole thing is before he passed, I didn't get to say goodbye or make amends. And that's the only sad part. So if you're out there, if you have a grudge against somebody or something, it's not worth it. You just do that. And that's when he went to Grandmaster Bruno in Portugal before he passed, and he told him I wanted, Professor Tony Jimenez to take over the KA because he's the only one that's going to make it work because the other ones don't do nothing. Even though we weren't talking, and like I said before, and I said this before, it did make me cry when I heard this. I did cry because it really upset me because I didn't say goodbye to him, and he had told Grandmaster Bruno that I love that man. He goes, but we're not talking, but those are my wishes. And then later on, Grandmaster Bruno called a hold of me and told me. So that's why I started the WWKA for him. It's not for me. It's for him. Now his name is completely worldwide. I mean, Russia wears his patch. Iran wears his patch. And like I said in interviews, it doesn't have my name on it, those patches. It has his name on there. So if anybody out there thinks that I'm doing this for myself, it's 100% wrong. Because you don't see my name on any of the patches. You see the KA patch with the Worldwide Kajukenbo Association, and his Gaylord's name on there, the Gaylord's method. And that's why, even the certificates, it's Gaylord method. It's not Jimenez method. It's Gaylord method. Because I'm honoring him. And like I said, he's a good guy. We had fun together. He was just a really good teacher. And I miss him a lot. There's been times, that, he was just funny. I had a studio in Oakland, and so I took him down there and to teach the class. Now, keep in mind, we're in Oakland, so me and him were probably the only white ones in there in the building, and there was a bunch of probably about 20 students in there, and they were all black, and they weren't listening. And he goes, "Come on!" He goes, "You colored guys and you guys have rhythm. I want you guys to move." Of course, when you say the colored guys, that's like saying the N-word. So of course we get 20 people just glaring at us. So then, but this is how he was. So I reached in his ear and I'm all, "Professor," I go, "They don't like to be called colored. It's like saying the N-word." Exact words. I don't give a fuck. He's like, call him what I want to call him. He didn't care. He was like, "Come on, you guys, I want to see you guys move." And that's just the way it was. I thought to myself, okay, get a shot. I go, but okay. But that's just the way it was. He was just a old school guy. And those are kind of those little things like that stick in your head. He just was a man that if anybody trained with him, they were very, very lucky to have somebody that trained with you. Because like even was going through with Sifu Vargas, he very seldom ever taught the classes, ever. It was Temer that taught him. He never sparred. He never really hit us hard. He never punched. I mean, he trained us hard, but he never really did like what Great Grandmaster Gaylord did. And as old as he was out there in black belt's class punching away, kicking, hitting, and he didn't hold back. So that's my story with Great Grandmaster Gaylord and Senior Grandmaster Vargas. The next chapter will be about the tournament scene in the 80s and 90s and some of the 2000s. And some pretty good stories inside there. So, when you read this, keep in mind, I'm not slandering anybody. I'm just telling the truth. And if you have any comments, leave it on the feedback section on the YouTube channel. And any suggestions or stuff that you want to hear. So until next chapter, chapter 3, I'm Senior Grandmaster Jimenez from Kajukenbo Live, coming from South Lake Tahoe. And I want to thank you for listening.